In this tutorial, I'm going to share with you my go-to artificial lighting setup to recreate natural light for food photography. Hey there, my name is Rachel Koronek, professional food photographer from Two Loves Studio. So today I want to share my secret setup that I use to create different moods within my food stories, just like these two images we're going to be shooting today. Now our bundt cakes are waiting for us, so let's start shooting. I worked on my artificial light for years, and there were two things that really stood in my way. The first thing was that I wanted to create a simple setup because I always lived in really small places and I wanted to have a small amount of equipment. So how was I going to recreate natural light in a small space with minimal gear? The second thing was that the way my brain works is I found it particularly hard to set up a scene and try to recreate natural light if it was coming from a different direction, if it was a different size. So my solution was to create the artificial light in the window using a really simple setup coming from the same direction, mimicking the same apparent size. Being in a small space, I didn't always have the space to set up a large modifier, large enough to recreate the soft window light. The second thing for me is I found it really easy to shoot natural light, put up my setup, shoot artificial, and make modifications so that it could look like window light. So today I want to share the results of my experiment to be able to set up that small setup in a window to save myself on space, but to also be able to recreate natural light in the same direction and the same size. So I want to walk you through just the gear that I use. If you don't have the same gear that I have, this works with different lighting stands. It also works with different strobes or flash. One thing I really love about this setup is we are already using something that a lot of us have for natural light anyway, which is a large diffuser here. So this is a 4x6 foot diffuser. It just fits really nicely in a window. If we take a look at the size of it too in comparison to our window, if we look at these two windows here, it is about the same size. So that's going to help us get that really soft, beautiful, natural light look that you get with a larger window. The second piece of equipment that I really love, especially for small spaces. Now, when I first got this, I thought, oh my gosh, it's way bigger than I thought. It's not going to work for small spaces. However, what is really cool about it is if I do have like this really small part here that can go between the window, is I can actually change the boom. I can make it go out and I can change it to go down and up. So this is really going to help with a small space. That way I'm not going to have my table too far away from the light. I can push everything up towards the window and have more space over here for the rest of my props to be able to move around and compose a scene. So that is why I really love the boom stand as well. I can also pop the boom stand away really nicely if you want to just use it sort of like a regular stand. Word of warning, if you are going to use a boom stand, this actually comes with a sandbag, so you just need to fill it up. But you're going to be able to attach this to the back of the boom stand. So it's going to counterweight your light and then you can have it at any angle that really works for your photos. You don't have to worry about it falling over or breaking your light. Today, we're going to be shooting with my Nikon Z6. I have an 85mm on and we're going to be doing a very simple composition. So I want us to really focus on, instead of like so many props and really pretty things, I want us just to focus on the simple changes in light that we're going to be making today. We're also going to be tethering to Capture One, so you'll be able to see as the images come through the changes in the light. So firstly, I'm going to get the boom stand set up. I'm just going to put it in a sort of generic position, thinking about how high does my natural light usually come through the window is a really good starting point. So I'm going to try and think about something sort of in the lower half of the diffuser. So to the middle of the diffuser and between the table is really optimally where I want to position the light to start with, to start playing with how this is going to look for soft light. Always put your sandbag on first. I've definitely had moments where I've not done that and it is not good. So I like to shoot with ProPhoto, and I have this really compact ProPhoto B10, which is really great for small spaces as well. And I'm simply going to just attach it to the end of the boom stand. And I want to have the light facing the diffuser. So I might get Mr. Cameraman just to come over so he can look at the food, just to see where the light is in comparison to the food. And how big sort of the window and the diffuser are going to be. Something to keep in mind is that this lighting that you see is for the video. So it looks very, very bright in here. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take a shot so that you can see that we are killing all the ambient light in here. So it is a great reminder if you are shooting with lots of light in your room, is there are two things. You want to take a shot to make sure you're killing ambient light. The other thing is if you're new to this, you might want to use blackout blinds so you can see what the light is doing on your scene. We're going to see what it does by looking at the final shot on the screen. To make sure that we're killing ambient light, I have turned the trigger to the light off. So I'm going to just take a photo, and if we come over and look at this, we can see that there is a tiny little bit of ambient light. So I might just change my settings just to reduce ISO, just to reduce that even further. If you're not familiar with what killing ambient means, what it means is that our camera settings are set so that if we're not using a flash, we are getting no ambient light in our photos. So our photo should really be black. So that is how we know that we're not mixing natural light and artificial, that anything we take, the light is only going to be coming from our artificial source. So let's turn on the trigger. I have the light set up. So if we take a shot now, we can see that we are getting light from our flash. Now I envision this shot to be bright and airy. So if we take a look at the lighting setup currently, there's too many shadows and we're not getting enough fill or wrap around the scene. Now when it comes to shooting towards the diffuser, our light is no longer the source. The diffuser is actually the source. So what we need to do is think about how we're going to position the light so that we are getting the most amount of light evenly lit onto the diffuser, so this becomes an apparent size that's similar to our window. So there's a couple of things we can do. We can lift the light up and down, and we can bring it more towards the subject so that we are lighting the diffuser a little bit more evenly. So let's just have a play and take a couple of shots, and you can see how that's going to work for our bundt cake here. So I'm going to move it closer. So I'm just going to move the light closer to the diffuser. We'll take a shot. I'm going to move it back, so closer to our subject. Take a shot. And I'm going to move it down. So here in this shot, we moved it closer to the diffuser, so you can see how the shadows are becoming harder. We moved it further away in this shot, so you can see how the shadows are becoming softer. And then we moved it down, so you can see how we are creating more definition in the bundt cake than in this shot here, where we're filling it from the top a little bit more. Because we want something bright and airy and we want it to be filled, what I'm going to do is lift the light up. And then there are two things I can do. I can bring the stand closer to the food, or with a boom stand, I can actually just bring the light closer, as long as I'm making sure it's not getting into the frame. And then currently this is angled that way rather than straight on. So I'm just going to change the position of the light on here with this little knob that I have, so I can go ahead and make sure that it is pointing straight at the diffuser. So now we're starting to shape the light nicely. It is starting to look like it's more filled across the scene. However, we have a lot of shadows at the back. So I'm just going to use a simple white card here that I've folded. So it's just going to sit nicely on the table here. And it's going to reflect some of the light back onto our scene and fill those shadows. I don't want you to worry about the holes in the cake because this is a test cake. However, something like this is really easy for us to fix in Photoshop, which is probably what I would do. So let's just take a look at the lighting here with the little bounce card that we added at the back. It's just going to help us fill those shadows really nicely, as we can see on screen here. So at this point, this has been really simple to set up. So what I would be doing now is looking at my histogram, making a few edits while I'm tethering, and then I would start to think about, does the night need to be a little bit brighter? Does it need to be a little bit more softer or diffused? So thinking about what I want here for a really bright shot, I think we can either increase our ISO because I'm really low right now, or I could go and increase the power of the light. So first of all, I'm going to try doing half a stop brighter on the light and taking a shot. And I think that's starting to look really nice. So I'd like to get the lighting set up right before I go ahead and like glaze things like a cake. So I have a glaze here and I do want to pour some into the bowl that we have on set. So I'm going to do that first. We're just going to take a shot. You want to make sure your lighting is set up before you do things like glaze cakes, because over time the icing is going to look differently to when it was freshly poured. I'm just going to go ahead and just glaze the cake. Now that I feel like the lighting is in a really good place, the other thing I want to do is just cut into the cake so you can see how the lighting on the scene is going to feel differently. So we might get a few little shadows in there. We might also open up something at the bottom. So I'm just going to cut the cake quickly and then we'll take another shot. So I've cut the cake. I'm just gonna add maybe a few like crumbs to the scene, a few little drips. We'll take a final shot. So I've taken the shot. The one thing I want to do is just maybe move this back a little bit, because now that we've cut the cake, we have some really nice shadows that are happening inside in these sort of areas here. So when you do things in photography, like create spaces where light can fill into, you just need to remember, like, do I need to move the reflector or your diffuser in a different way? So you're thinking about like, where are those shadows and how are they working for my concept? And I'll just do one more thing. Let's just take a look at the difference with filling some of the shadows in here in different ways. After playing around with a little bit of composition and doing final edits and retouching, here was our final shot for this light and airy bundt cake setup. Now that we've finished shooting this light and bright setup, we're going to transform it using the same setup to create something a little bit more moody and dramatic. So I'm going to set that up now. So I haven't changed the light at all. I haven't changed the power. I haven't touched it. All I've done is brought in a darker background. We have a different subject, a different bundt cake that we're going to be shooting. And the goal here is to take light away. So we're going to manipulate it the same as we would our window light. So let's take a shot to see what that looks like, how this lighting looks straight just by making no changes, just swapping in a different background, removing the fill card. So let's just take a look at this photo and think about what do we want to change in terms of the lighting. So one of the reasons I chose a bundt cake is it has these beautiful ridges that light can sort of dance between. We can have beautiful shadows to like create that shape. So I want the shot to feel moody and dramatic, but with my moodier work, I do like to have bright elements. Now, the first thing that stands out for me is the top is a little bit bright. So what we're going to start to do is take away some light. So I have some foam boards here that we're going to be using. And I have a couple of different sizes. So the first thing I'm going to do is pop this at the back of our scene. Okay, I'm going to do two things. So this is probably going to cut out too much light, as we can see, not necessarily what we want. So really just quickly, if you had a shorter foam board, you could use that, or I just sort of push it towards the back. It's going to cut out a little bit of light from the top of our scene. Here's the difference between no foam board and then just adding a foam board at the top just to reduce some of the light up there. You could also use a local adjustment, but I sort of like to get my light as bright as I can in camera. So to make it a little bit more dramatic, I'm going to bring in another foam board. And what I want to do is, like, let's think about our natural light here. We want to sort of cut out the light. We might even use a larger one, but let's just see if this is going to be good enough. So I'm going to position it here to cut out some of this light that would have been bouncing off our diffuser. So I'm just going to set that up with just a little lighting stand here. Let's take a shot to see what that looks like. And so here we're taking some light away. So what I'm going to do is just bring in our fill card again. I don't want it to be too close. Let's just take a look at what that does. Maybe we'll move it a little bit closer. Okay, it's just peeking in the frame a little bit. And then we'll start to make a few little modifications. So I might go up by half a stop on our light as well. And what I'm going to do is think about, is it bright enough? Do I need to just change the foam boards a little bit? I'm going to position the one on the back differently. So I'm just going to jump around and do that. A little hack with your foam boards, if you're able to fold them, even large ones, is they're going to just stand themselves up, and that just less gear, really good for small spaces. So I'm trying to think about, like, can we create a little bit of a strip of light here? Okay, so that's looking nice and dramatic. One thing I like to do is we have stools around the house. So in order to get this to be higher, I'm just going to pop it on a stool. So here's the shot we had before, and here's what we've ended up with. So we're just shaping the light differently depending on where we're putting the foam boards to take some of that light away. The other thing we could do if we want it to be more dramatic, and I think it works for a subject like this, is we can lower the light. Let's just take a look between those two, just to make it more dramatic. So I sort of like this, but maybe I'm just going to angle my ProPhoto light. Just angle it up just a little bit to hopefully just fill in a little bit of the shadows. One thing that we can do to make it a little bit more directional as well is I could change the light. So instead of having straight onto our subjects, it's going to be a little bit more angled. Okay, so let's try a little bit more. I think I'd like to make it just a little bit darker at the top here. So I just have one more small board. What is so good about tethering is that we can start to see how we're shaping light, how it's looking in camera, and then what little changes we can make. I'll try half a stop down. Other thing we can do is just maybe just going to position the light a little bit closer. Just so we have shadows that are a little bit more dramatic. What I'm trying to do is reduce the amount of light that we have in this corner. So I'm just going to play with just moving this board. There we go. I just want to try adding a little bit more light across the scene. So I'm just going to move this up a little bit higher. So I think that looks really nice. So now I'm going to dust the cake and then we'll cut into it and we'll get one of our final shots. After dusting the cake with cocoa powder, it is a little bit darker, so I'm just going to turn up the light half a stop. And now that we've turned up the power of the light, I'm just going to bring the reflector or the white fill back a little bit. So hopefully with this tutorial, what you're seeing is that we change the light up and down towards the diffuser, away, and then we are blocking light with different fill cards, negative fill, and then just adding a little bit of light where we need to. I mean, you could literally play with this for hours, and often that's what we do. So I'm going to cut into the cake now just to see how that's going to change our subject, how it feels, and how the lighting feels. Okay, so the cake is cut. Let's take a shot. So the cake, it's actually giving us a bright element there. So maybe we can go ahead and make the lighting just a little bit darker. I'm just going to remove this cake crumb. It's a bit large for my liking. Just going to move this down a touch. So what I would like to do here is I've added the fill just so we can pick up this. And I might just bring one closer as well, because what I like to do with lighting, like part of lighting is also comes in editing. So I might create a really nice vignette to go with this photo. And what I want to make sure is that I bring out these details. So I'm just going to go closer. And I can always Photoshop this out, but like here at least I have all those beautiful definition of the cake in here. For me, lighting is never done, so I just want to go ahead and just put up a large board on one hand side just to see if we can't get something even more dramatic. If you're lucky enough to have large space on your windowsill as well, you might be able to just stand this up. Should we test our luck? Let's hope that stays. I feel like we've got to work quickly because that is totally going to fall. Just going to move this foam board slightly just to keep taking light away, just to see how it's going to shape the subject. So a lot of these things you will have shooting natural light anyway. You'll have your bounce cards, your black and white foam boards, you'll have your diffuser. So really you're just setting it up like you would do with natural light and then taking light away. That's probably a bit too much. Just going to bring the sugar duster in. So with this final dramatic shot, after playing with a little bit of composition, editing our raw file and doing some retouching, here was the final shot. So I hope that you've seen that with this one simple setup, we can create so many different types of lighting and feeling in our food story. So let's just recap what we did. So to recreate natural light, we used this large 4-foot by 6-foot diffuser that we put into the window. We then put our light onto our lighting stand. So here I'm using a boom stand. And the great thing about the boom stand is that we can move the light towards the diffuser, away. We can make it higher or lower. And then we can also go ahead and tilt our light up and down to get different looks as well. And then we can tilt it different ways if you want to have it directional. The next piece of the puzzle is to take light away. We need to have our foam boards. So white on one side, black on the other. So black, we are blocking light or sometimes having negative fill. And the white side we use to reflect light back onto our seat. So it's really great if you can have a few different sizes and shapes so that you can go ahead and block light to get the type of look that you're going for. To learn more about composition, tethering, and editing, you can check out one of my masterclasses at courses.twolovestudio.com. Otherwise, you can head to the blog twolovestudio.com and learn everything food photography. So I can't wait to see how you're going to use this lighting setup to create your next food story.